This video is going to be a little bit more personal than my typical Aduro videos, where I'm going to walk you through how I discovered Aduro, what made me finally pull the trigger on investing, and what my current situation is and how big Aduro is compared to my, other investments. And Aduro definitely is by far the largest investments of my life, ever. And yeah, I'm going to walk you through how I got to this point. So the pre-investment story, which is how I discovered Aduro and what I did after I became aware of the company. So I was following the Aduro story on and off starting in July 2022. And this in the beginning was mostly just through videos from Mariusz Konechny. You know him already probably if you've been an Aduro investor for a while, because he was the person that, started covering the technology publicly as the first person on YouTube, and was following him, before then for other investment opportunities. But when he started talking about Aduro, I looked at the share price, investor slide deck from time to time, but honestly, I wasn't really impressed because all it was at this point was just promises. And it sounded like all of those too good to be true companies. It seemed very speculative, pie in the sky, unproven. And, just based on promises and, who knows? And, it was pretty complicated. It's like chemistry, and I'm not a big chemistry guy. So, like, how much effort would it take for me to figure this out? And I had other investments, and I at that point didn't have like massive sums of money to invest, so I would have to that just seems all too complicated. And doing a deep dive or like due diligence would take like a lot of work. I managed at that point only like Mariusz started covering the company. There were a couple of others picking up, but yeah, the company was just tiny and, like unknown. And like, who knows if if the management are like complete scammers who are just, talking their book and then, would just disappear with the money, or the company would just slowly drift into obscurity as their technology would fail. Like, who knew at that point? And it was just very complicated. And, adding to the fact that, in early 22, I just started a new job that took quite a lot of energy and time. And, I was just like, on the weekends, I just wanted to relax, and like, I was just too lazy to do proper due diligence. I already had other investments, which, I did, let's just say, too little due diligence in retrospective, right? Like, at that point, I believed I had done a lot of due diligence on my other investments, but I didn't, right? And I'm not going to go into other companies here, but let's just say, I was also a little bit demotivated from investing because, my performance was really not that good at that point. But I kept following the story on and off. Sometimes, like for a couple of months, I didn't look at it at all. And sometimes I looked at it a little bit more. And at some point, there wasn't no specific announcement, no event, no whatever. It was just, I was just observing the progress. And at some point, it just seemed the company was now de-risked enough and ripe enough at that point. And it still was very, very cheap, I couldn't figure out exactly how much it was. Would have been something like 65 to 80 million US dollars market cap. So, I thought, they talked about the patents. Probably the patents are worth at the very lowest like 100 million, likely. So it seemed like there was downside protection, and the upside was if the company actually did even like half of what they talked about, that would be like a pretty good investment, I thought. And the risk to reward just made sense. And yeah, the company made steady progress, and different than from the other companies that I looked at that point, where the management was just talking a lot and not executing. They were just talk and didn't show any results that were actually supporting their grand ideas. And Aduro just delivered on their milestones, or the milestones that I personally cared about. They got more and more collaborators, and yeah. So Aduro made 75 videos about Aduro at that point, which I all watched. So again, like some months I didn't watch any of them, and then I was catching up and watched like 20 videos at once. And then I started doing my own due diligence over time, looking at like more the investor slide decks, looking at what other companies saw in them. They were in the Shell Game Changer program at that point, so it was like, yeah, I started to get more and more content. They had 6 large customers in a customer engagement program, so obviously not customers in the sense that they were selling commercial product to them, but they had like a customer engagement program. And this definitely gave me a lot of, let's say, motivation to dig a little bit deeper, because one of those large customers, which we only learned later on, was Total Energies, which was like a massive company. And yeah, so I decided to invest, and it was a pretty big investment. It was in April 2024 at a weighted average of 325 per share post-split. So at this point, the share structure was a little bit different, but for comparison's sake, I just converted it all to current shares. And if you take all the dollars I ever invested into Aduro, this this batch here. In this batch, I pretty much invested 50% of what I, over my total life, invested into Aduro in terms of US dollars. So very, very big investment at a pretty cheap price. And then early July 24, stock price dipped a little bit more, and I bought a smaller tranche. So, now I had about 2/3 of all the money I ever spent on Aduro and in those 2 months. So after my first investments, I think, from a timing perspective, looking back at it, I just got lucky. Got pretty lucky that right after it, we had two absolutely massive announcements. The first one was in July 23rd, 2024, so shortly after I did my second tranche. We had an uplisting announcement. Initially, it was to the New York Stock Exchange, but then later on they switched it to the Nasdaq, which was, for me, absolutely massive because, for the company to actually get the valuation that it deserved, it had to trade somewhere where the majority of investors could invest, right? Because before then I was buying the stock on OTC. Over the counter, it was also trading in Canada, but, the pool of investors that could actually buy is not that large, right? Internationally, you might not be able to even buy Canadian stocks, but, New York Stock Exchange and Nasdaq, pretty much anywhere in the world you can invest in those. So they made me pretty happy already. They thought, okay, the investment that I did already, such a big announcement already happened shortly after. But if this wasn't crazy enough, just 7 days later, Total Energy collaboration was announced. So not only did they reveal that one of their 6 customer engagement program participants was Total Energies, but also that they now upgraded to a collaboration announcement, which was crazy. That was the biggest news that instantly validated my investment. And obviously, from a timing perspective, I got pretty lucky. They invested right before these major transformational announcements. And then November 7th, Aduro started trading on the Nasdaq. So, obviously the stock price really performed quite well. Not right after the uplisting, but pretty quickly became, the case that, this $3 to $4 range is not, it upgraded quite quickly to $10 a share from then on. Not all at once, but over time. November 12th, we also had another engagement, let's say, from GF Building Flow Solution Americas. A memorandum of understanding was announced. Again, gave me even more confidence. Then from about August 24 to January 25. So I think in September I did quite a big tranche out of those. But, over those months I invested a little bit time by time. And it averaged out at exactly $5 per share. And, 2/3 of my money I invested before. And now I did another tranche. Obviously, I got quite a bit less shares because I invested $5 per share here on average. But yeah, that was my final tranche, and since January 2025, I have not sold or bought any Aduro shares. So the position that I had in January is exactly the position that I have right now. And depending on what time you're gonna be watching this video, obviously the share price is significantly higher now in the double digits. So in total, my average price was $3.62 per share, or $3.63 with fees included. And again, comparing it to the current stock price, I think the investment already worked out quite well, but I mean, still the upside is still quite insane, I think. Once people actually realize what a absolutely crazy, unique, and powerful, and whatever other buzzwords you can attach to it, technology it is. Not gonna give any stock price prediction of what I think the stock price will be, because it's kind of useless. I don't know what the stock price will do, but I think as long as we are in the double-digit dollar amounts, the company is still cheap. Let's just say that. But, again, not investment advice. I am an Aduro investor, as you see here, so I will be biased. So please do your own due diligence, so you have no one else to blame when investments fail or go up, right? It's way better when you yourself convince it's a good investment and then it went up 10x, and then you're going to be proud of yourself that you actually put in the work and didn't just listen to someone talking about the company. And, because of the really good performance, in combination with my other investments not really performing that well, Aduro started somewhere in a 40% of my portfolio, and now it's 80% of my portfolio, depending on specific price movements, but it's 70 to 85%, depending on what it is. So yeah, a lot of people will look at this in horror. Like, how can you pretty much bet your whole financial future on one single company? That's like completely counter to all of the financial mainstream knowledge that people claim. They claim, oh, you have to go index funds or else, it's too risky. Let's just say I'm a hater of, I really don't like the whole index fund things because maybe I'll do a separate video at some point when I'm branching out into non-Aduro content. Don't worry, it's not going to be soon. I'm going to be, for quite a few months, I'm going to be talking just about Aduro, so stay subscribed, don't get worried. Yeah. And if you haven't already, again, please subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support me so I can keep doing videos for you guys. I enjoy, the positive feedback that I get, and you guys seem to really enjoy it. And I think Aduro is such a, generational opportunity that you just have to subscribe to not miss any updates. See you guys next time.